Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Earthing Live. We will get started here in about 5 minutes. For those of you just joining us, we will start our Earthing Live, where we answer your questions live here on this webinar. We'll start in about 3 or 4 minutes. Welcome, everyone, to Earthing Live. We'll get started here in just a couple of minutes. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Earthing Live, where we answer your questions live on this webinar. Before we get started, just a quick reminder that anything we talk about here is not meant to replace the advice of your doctor or healthcare practitioner. Please always consult with your healthcare practitioner before making any adjustments to your medication or recommended health routine. Welcome. I am joined here today with Clint Ober, as always. We're streaming now on 3 different platforms, Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube. You can ask questions on all of those platforms. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can go ahead and post your question in the comment section. We do have somebody monitoring that, and those questions will get to me. And if you're on the Zoom platform, you can answer your question to the Q&A in the Q&A section. Please do not use the chat section for questions that you want to get to me. I can only see the Q&A section. As always, our customer service department is here helping out. And if you have any general customer service questions, you can contact them at help@earthing.com. And you can also check out our website, earthing.com. We have a ton of FAQs, as well as phone numbers on how to contact us and get a live person. So now I'd like to introduce Clint Ober. He is our founder and CEO here at Earthing. He discovered grounding the human body can improve how we feel about 25 years ago. And since then, he's worked tirelessly to improve the safety, the longevity, the comfort of all of our products, as well as to further the science and research of grounding the human body. Welcome, Clint.
Thank you, Jennifer. Glad to be here.
I see that you're in our actual Earthing building. This is we're starting to get back a little bit to normal. So
yeah, I got caught at work.
Yeah, a new venue today. Okay, let's see here. Let's go ahead and our first question here is from Linford. Do you have any suggestions for where in the car to attach the clip coil cord to create a negative ground? The metal rails for adjusting the seat seem to be uninsulated metal. Can painted metal attached to the frame also carry negative electrons?
What you have to do is on that rail, usually one portion is not painted. It's just bare metal. And the best thing to do is clip onto that. Otherwise, you can go underneath the seat where the springs are, you know, the spring wires crossing back and forth, and just take the alligator clip and put it on one of those, and then wiggle it back and forth so that it cuts through the paint. And that's a perfect ground also.
Very good. Deborah is asking, during a lightning storm, do I need to unplug my bed mat?
If you feel comfortable doing that, if you have any fear or any concern, you should. But it's biological. I mean, as far as the ground, the bed pads, the sleep mats, they have a 100K resistor in the in the end that plugs into the wall. And generally, lightning will take the path of least resistance to ground, and it's not going to come up a wire and try to get burned through a 100K resistor. So lightning is kind of a phenomena that is, it's really large. I mean, you can't relate to a ground wire to a lightning strike because it's just an extraordinary event. And but anyhow, it's just a flash. It doesn't have a lot of power behind it, but it does. It does. You have to get to Earth as quickly as possible, usually within a fraction of a second. So that, to answer that question, I would say go with your own, what makes you feel best.
All right. Jennifer is asking, can OCD be helped with earthing? And she is asking from the UK.
Yes, we have a few people with OCD. And yes, it does, because what it does is it calms the nervous system. And that's part of the situation going on there. But yeah, we do have benefit. I know a couple of them personally, and that have been grounded for many, many years. And yes, grounding is beneficial.
Richard has a question here. I believe he's kind of piggybacking off of the first question we asked or answered about cars. How is it that you're grounded when the car has rubber tires?
Okay. Well, what you're doing is the metal in the car is considered a large ground plane in and of itself, meaning it has a couple tons of metal. And when you connect the seat pad to the frame anywhere, then it is, the whole frame is conductive. So the seat pad is conductive to the frame so when you sit on it, when you're driving down the road, what happens in automobiles, to a large degree is the seats. The bottom seat goes up and down based on the road and little bumps in the road. And so what you do is the back is stationary. So what happens is your body is moving around a little bit, and that's creating tribocharging, static electricity. And we know from some studies that we've done is that if you can ground the person and eliminate that static electricity on the body, they have significant benefit. So how it works is if the metal in the vehicle weighs 2 tons, or let's say 6,000 to 8,000 pounds, and a person sitting on a grounded mat weighs like 200 pounds. So when you're sitting on the seat, you're taking 100% of the charge from the tribocharging. But as soon as you sit on the seat and it's grounded, then that is distributed throughout the 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 pounds of metal. And so it drops down to, between 95 and 99% is diminished as soon as you ground. So you don't really have, it's not really an earth ground, but it is a ground, and it's grounding out the static charge on your body. It's also connected to a 12-volt battery on the, most vehicles are 12. And that's a negative. So the chassis, the metal of the car, has a 12-volt charge on it. So that's a negative charge. So it probably helps.
All right. Now, what about a layer of clothing while you're sitting on, while you're using one of our products, the earthing mat? Are you still grounded?
Yeah. Generally speaking, you can sit on a mat with blue jeans, which are, and then within some number of seconds or 30 seconds or something, you're going to perspire enough to hydrate the clothing sufficient that electrons can flow, that you have contact. So yes, they do work. Yes. If you have a tester, you can kind of see that sometimes. If you're sitting on it, yeah, sometimes you can. But yes. Yes.
Diana has a question about her goddaughter. She had surgery for stage 4 cervical cancer at 20 years of age, and she currently has a growth that doctors will remove within the next 2 weeks because it is growing so rapidly. She got an earthing mat and a pillowcase. Is there any data to suggest that this might slow the growth?
Well, you always have to remember what earthing is about. Earthing is when you get grounded, you make contact with the earth, and the earth has a negative charge of about, let's say, 20 millivolts. So as you connect to the earth, then your body absorbs, or electrons from the earth come up into your body, and then they reduce positive charges, inflammation primarily. And so when you reduce the inflammation by grounding, then what happens is the immune system, which is involved in this, has to spend all of its time cleaning up the damage that's being created by the inflammatory process or the inflammation that's going on in the body. So as soon as you get grounded and reduce the positive charges in your body, then the immune system can go about cleaning up the immediate problem that's related to that inflammation. Then it can go back to returning the body to normal, because the body is a self-healing, it's self-healing, and it has all of its own self-healing mechanisms. And in nature, health is your most natural state. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you can get grounded, you're going to take the pressure off the immune system, then the immune system can go back and take care of what's out of control here. But I would totally, in this situation, not knowing any more than I do, rely heavily on your physicians and medical advice. But for sure, ground it. Use the patch if you have one on the abdominal areas and so on. But just, yes, it's going to help.
All right. We get this question a lot as well. So this is kind of a two-part question. This person is asking if the half bed mat, or the single sleep mat that we call it, is just as good as a large sleep mat that covers the entire bed size. And Why do we have pillowcases? Do you need a pillowcase and a sleep mat? Can you use one or the other? What are the advantages there?
Well, first, the single sleep mat is like 27 inches wide. And if you're putting it on top of your sheet, and sleeping directly on it, it's probably as good as you need. You can put it also widthwise across the bed, and two people can sleep on it from the shoulder to the buttocks. That's a good way to go with that. But the full sleep mat, like the size of the bed, what happens when you put a ground plane in your bed? Earth has an electric field, just like an electrical wire or anything else. So when you put that in your bed, then you kind of have a bubble. It's a bigger bubble. You do have the electrons coming in and reducing inflammation, all of that, but you also have this resonant frequency of the earth that's kind of radiating from that mat. And the more there is of it, the less you're going to be affected by environmental electric fields in your bedroom and so on. So to me, if you can afford it, the full-size sleep mat is probably the better way to go. Under any circumstances, the single sleep mats are very effective. They're very portable. You can travel with them. You can do all that kind of stuff. So what was the second part of that question?
The pillow covers. Do you have to have a pillow cover? What's the advantage of adding a pillow cover?
No, you don't have to. The reason that we came out a long time ago, we've made pillowcases off and on for years. We've never had like the cotton silver pillowcases, they would only last sometimes not even a month. So we abandoned all of that. And then we went with pure silver. We did, all kinds of things. So, but the reason that a lot of people ask for them, first of all, a lot of people that have used them, even though they didn't last long, they requested them. But if you can envision in your bedroom with no wallboard on the walls, and if you can, there's studs going up and down, in the wall, and then you have electrical outlets on the side of each of the bed, on each side of the bed where the lamps and everything are plugged into, but the wiring from them come up, and then they go when the electricians put the wiring in your home, they take a drill and they drill holes in the 2x4s and go across the bed or all the walls and up to the ceiling and all that kind of stuff. But in the process, all these wires come up and they go back and forth to electrical outlets, electrical switches, to lamps, to overhead lighting, and heaven only knows what else. But all of these wires are at waist high to an electrician. So if you were to go stand next to your bed at the head of the bed, you will find that waist high is where your head is. So every night you're sleeping within 6 inches of a bundle of Romax. I know all the EMF people, they all go crazy about lamps and all this kind of stuff. But the biggest problem that there is, if this is a concern to you, it is those wires in the wall that are within 6 inches of your head during sleep. If you're sleeping, so anyhow, whether this is a problem or not a problem, that's something for you to determine. But anyhow, by having the grounded pillowcase, it does reduce the effect, any effect that would be there. It helps to reduce that effect. But a lot of people just it quiets their mind. It quiets the monkey brain at night. You're rattling. And so there are benefits, but they're kind of unique to different people. But we have a lot of these new ones out, and people seem to be pretty happy with them. But a lot of people, that's all they can afford. Some people will actually take the pillowcase and make a mat out of it, put a towel inside of it, and sleep on it. Make it a nice little, because it's 30 inches long and 20 inches wide. Some people use it in chairs that way. Some people use it all different kinds of ways. Some people put a pillow in and use it for dog beds. So we have the new dog beds now. But anyhow, the only thing I can tell you is if you have any of the issues or any of the concerns that I just discussed, you may want to give it a try. But you don't have to have both. But I will tell you this, when we did worked with the school teachers in a 5-year long study, we would introduce them to, first of all, introduce them to the grounding mat, and had lots of great benefit. And then we introduced the pillow when they came out and gave them the pillows, and everybody came back and began raving about the pillows. So because they got better benefit, more benefit. So lower body, again, a lot of this is subjective. So we don't have a study that says this. But anyhow, I hope this has been helpful.
Yeah. Okay, Diana has a question here. She has the single sleep mat and a pillowcase, and she's pretty healthy, except she has some high blood pressure and also a little bit of high cholesterol. Can grounding help with either one of these?
Well, high blood pressure is, can be related to diet. It can be related to, you have pressure on you in your life, your lifestyle, work, family, all the things that go on with life, and a little bit challenged to handle everything that can raise blood pressure. Salts, various food, a lot of things. So what grounding does is it helps to calm the sympathetic nervous system, which allows the parasympathetic to rebuild, to restore. And so that kind of has a quieting effect. And I would believe that your blood pressure will be less after you get on the mat. And we do have a study, the hypertension study that it's on the Earthing Institute. Mm-hmm. They want to put it up on the site for them. But yes, there was they did reduce blood pressure and so on in that study. That was this is the cardiologist that did it was like a 2-year study on and off. But anyhow, so yes, but again, everything is subjective. Just remember, it's like grounding can calm the nervous system. It can reduce the inflammation, put the fire out. But sometimes you got to stop and think, what's feeding all of these fires and what's feeding all of this stress? And that's coming from up here and your environment, a lot of things. So you just kind of have to find ways to manage all of that. That's as far as I can go with that right now.
I did put the link to the hypertension study in the chat section at Zoom, or in the Zoom platform. You can search all of the research that we stand behind at earthinginstitute.net. There's a research section, and you can easily just search for the hypertension study.
Yep.
Okay, another Jennifer is asking about her friend's teenage daughter who has type 1 diabetes. How can earthing help her?
Was there a qualifier on that diabetes or just diabetes?
I believe I said type 1. Yeah, okay. Type 1.
Okay, type 1 is inherited. All we know is that no matter who you are, no matter what disorder or problem or issues you have, if you can get grounded, the main thing, first of all, you have to think of it this way: grounding. Throughout all time, we were always grounded. Back 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and it's like so. Not being grounded is something that developed over a period of the last 60, 70 years. And that's when we introduced rubber sole shoes, and we had, before then we were barefoot or we wore leather sole shoes. And so anyhow, by grounding the body, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to reduce inflammation. You're going to improve immune function, because now the immune system isn't fighting inflammation and all of those issues. It's there to do its job, which is to restore and maintain health. So I can tell you that everybody will benefit from grounding, because it's just nature. It's part of your nature. For millions of years, our bodies had a negative charge, and that means you can't have inflammation in a body that has a negative charge. And then over the last 70 years, we started wearing shoes, living in homes above the earth, carpets and foam beds, all of the issues that go with all of that. And so our bodies now we all have some level of chronic inflammation. And as time goes on, it manifests as various health disorders based on your environment and your lifestyle that go with it. So I would say yes, definitely, it's going to have a big improvement on our health.
We have a question here about the mattress covers and the pillow covers. And this sort of goes back to a question we just answered with clothes, but this person is asking specifically about sheets on the mattress cover and pillow cover. Is it okay?
To have sheets on top.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. The product was designed, first of all, it's 100% conductive. The black mat is 100% conductive. Anything that was ever in the market before that, like the silver and so on, that was 5% conductive. And the problem is they just didn't last. But the new carbon black sleep mats, they are a 100% ground plane. So when you put them in your bed and you put a sheet over the top of them, and you go to bed at night, your body's going to perspire sufficient that you're going to hydrate the sheet to a degree, and then you're going to have conductivity between your body and the mat. Now, that's, again, subjective, depending on the type of sheets. With flannel doesn't work very well. If you have a lot of pajamas on at the same time, and flannel and so on, that kind of inhibits it. But the thing that I think I would like to add is I sleep directly on my sleep mat, and I have for a long time. And it's cool, very cool to sleep on. And I'm either like Palm Springs, it's hot here a lot. And but the main thing is I'm grounded. I'm 100% grounded. I don't have any inflammation in my body. I don't want any. And I do it, I know, by sleeping on it. Now, a lot of people are not going to do that. So what I would highly recommend is if you find the thinnest cotton sheet that you can, like a hotel sheet. They're very thin. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to use a lot of water washing too much cotton. But anyhow, find a very thin cotton sheet, as thin as you can find, and they should work fine. But when you lay your head on the pillow on a pillowcase, that's not such a big issue because you hydrate that pillowcase quite quickly because there's a lot of moisture on your face and so on. The feet are the most conductive part of your body, and the hands. So you try to keep your feet and hands bare. If you don't sleep with socks if you can help it. But anyhow, the main thing that I've tried to engineer here with all of this, first of all, we did the studies, the science, to validate that the effects of grounding and earthing, that they're real. I mean, they really do affect the body. They really do prevent inflammation in the body. And so some people who are older have much more inflammation, much more damage. Their health is much more compromised. So for them to get grounded, they need to get grounded and stay hard grounded. And hard grounded to me is sleeping directly on the mat, or put your bare feet on a uni mat, or use patches or whatever. But just to stay hard grounded as long and get the fire out of your body, get the inflammation out of your body. That may take a few days, a few hours, or it may take a few weeks. It doesn't. And then as you recover from that, then by sleeping on the sheets and everything, that's all fine. But once all the inflammation's gone, then you don't need that full contact all the time, because the electrons are going to migrate through that sheet and through your body and throughout your body, no matter what you do. Just because of the humidity in the air and the perspiration from your body throughout the evening, throughout the night. You sweat at least a cup of water every night. And that's the moisture I'm talking about.
And how much grounding do you need a day?
Well, I'll answer that. First of all, any amount of grounding is better than none. And 100% is throughout all time, throughout the time that got us here. We were grounded 100%. We couldn't get off of the earth. We slept on the earth. We were barefoot on the earth. We may have had animal skins or whatever. But but then we have the animals who live outdoors in the wild. They're grounded 100% of the time. They don't have inflammation-related health disorders. They do not have autoimmune diseases. They don't have the lupus, the MS, the cardiovascular disease, the 85 more popular autoimmune-related health disorders. But yet the animals who live indoors with their owners, they all develop diabetes and MS, and lupus, and everything that their owners do. And to give you an example, 50% of the indoor animals die from cancer. 50% of humans die from cancer. The animal world doesn't exist. So what I'm saying there, and I'll say this another way, it's really important that you ground as much as you can. If you can't, any amount is better. Half hour in the morning, half hour at night is a good way to get started. But beyond that, if you have pain in your body, that means you have inflammation in your body. You cannot have pain in your body unless there's inflammation, because the inflammation is the fire that's creating the pain, that's telling you, it's a message to you that you got a problem. You need to put out the fire. So if you have pain in your body, you need to get grounded, stay grounded until you recover. But again, lifestyles, all the situations that go along in life, everything is a little bit subjective here, and you have to figure out what works for you. But the main thing, what we're trying to do is give you a tool or a mechanism that you can reduce inflammation while you're living in a modern home. This is really, this may be an archaic term, but a patch cord, meaning in the old days, we used to patch, telephones and whatever, cords. And so we put one end of the cord in the earth and the other end connected to a device so that you can lay on it. So it's really an extension cord. We've created, these products are an extension cord between you and the earth so that you can be grounded like you were in nature while you're indoors living in your home, sleeping in your bed. And some people, it's acutely more beneficial than others because it's all a factor of how much, the condition of your health, the condition of, but again, anyhow, so more is better, but anything is good.
Colleen has a question here. Can we still get the effects of earthing when we lay a towel on the ground and then lay on it?
Yes, because the towel will hydrate with the moisture in the sand or the grass or the dirt, and it will eventually become moist. So yes, I've done that myself several times.
Ashley has a question about sleeping on a mattress cover or a sleep mat. Should you sleep naked directly on it?
I do. And the thing that's neat about this, if you have to change your sheets out a couple times a week, or you got to take a shower every night, and most people don't do that. With the sleep mat, they're made of carbon. I mean, they have a high level of carbon in them, and so you're not going to have the odors and everything that you would normally with a normal sheet. But like what I do sometimes, after I take a shower, I just take the towel that I dried myself with and go wipe my mattress cover down. And I feel very happy. And I've got one that I've been sleeping on for, almost 2 years now. I love it. I wouldn't give it up for anything. And I don't have any adverse feelings or odors or anything like that. So it's saving a lot of water. Very green, very healthy green.
George has a question here. If you're grounding daily, how can you check your immune system and tell that it's in top condition?
Well, first of all, if you have any pain in your body, that means you have inflammation. And, that can be a result of You're spending 8 hours a day grounded. You're spending 16 hours a day out chasing the bear, or making a living and do what you do. So depending on, people have a lot of inflammation, they may need to ground more, as much time as they are ungrounded, or more time. Like ladies with MS and lupus, they probably need to be grounded 16 hours a day minimum out of 24. And they get rapid recovery and really good benefits. But again, everything is, every situation is a little bit different. But the main thing is, you won't get as many colds. You won't have as many allergies. You'll be able to get out of bed a little easier in the morning, sometimes a lot easier. You have a lot more energy. You just feel better, and you can manage exposure to certain things better. But again, I don't know the particulars here, but generally speaking, allergies are an immune system dysfunction. What isn't an immune system dysfunction? The immune system can handle almost anything. But if you have a lot of inflammation, it's busy fighting the inflammation. And then that's when all of these other issues show up. So I guess the way to answer this is, if you have pain in your body, then you need more grounding. But that would be a good barometer. Or if you have allergies and stuff, that would be a barometer.
Okay. This question is about the pillow cover. What is the difference between the perforated side and the solid side? Is it simply a matter of cleaning?
No. What we have is a lot of ladies in their minds that do not want to wake up with polka dots on their face. No, they don't, and it doesn't do that. But a lot of ladies like the smooth side to sleep on, because their hair doesn't get tangled or curly. There's a bunch of issues there. But the women want, they want one side to be smooth, one side, for the breathing. We had to have one side for the breathability, because it's a closed container. But that's the only reason. It's easy to clean also.
All right. Have you observed any improvement in bunions over the years?
Yeah, they generally go away. If more, the more time, the reason they're asking here is, hopefully they've had some results. But yes, we have a lot of people that have them, and they eventually see, the body is a self-correcting mechanism. If you have like a bunion, then something you're doing is causing that, your shoes or something. And then when you lose the shoes, or you spend more time grounded, whatever, then everything begins to straighten out. It's like arthritis. I mean, you can meet some people that can't straighten out their hand, and then 6 months later, their hands have straightened out.
Okay, this person is asking about dirty electricity and if it's something they should be concerned about.
Well, there's dirty electricity is what it is. What they're made. If you have a refrigerator in your house and the motor kicks on, there'll be a spike. You can't feel it. Most people can't feel it, but there'll be a spike, a transient spike. Every time it turns off, there'll be one. Every time the color changes on your TV set, there'll be a transient spike. Because you're seeing color. These are spectrum. These are frequencies, and they're into the environment. So your environment is full. I mean, if frequencies were all black, then and you tried to see them, you wouldn't be able to see anything, because the whole room would be solid black, because the room is full of frequency, various frequencies and so on. But anyhow, the dirty electricity, I'm almost speechless when I have to talk about this. But anyhow, there is the article on the Earthing Institute website that addresses dirty electricity. There are studies that have been put out by Health Canada, with all of these black boxes and all this kind of stuff. So, but anyhow, the main thing, the only people that I know of And I wrote a little paper on this for someone else last week on this. To give you an idea is, one time a doctor called me and he said, would you please go and visit with this lady because she's very electrically sensitive. And so I ended up going to her home, and she was so sensitive that if you flipped a light switch in a bedroom 2 to 3 doors down, you could see her body flinch. Okay, so and then whenever, for instance, there was noise, even just the noise, opening and closing a door, or the TV set, if the color white came up on the TV set, she couldn't be around it. I mean, she would totally respond to it. And and I could go on and on about that particular situation, but I've seen a lot of this over the years. But these are the people who are electrically sensitive, and they are the ones who would be, if anybody was electrically, if dirty electricity, as they call it, it's not dirty electricity. It's just, frequencies. I mean, it's transient spikes because of the way our systems work. But anyhow, so what I did with that particular lady was we grounded her. And after about 20, 30 minutes, then all of a sudden she started to settle down. And then we started grounding more and more and more. But what problem was, the doctor had diagnosed her with exhausted adrenals, or her adrenals were burned out. I mean, she had none. And so the sympathetic nervous system, it senses everything in the environment: wind, sound, noise, electric fields, anything in the environment, it's sensing it. And it's pushing, it's like half your body's and the other side is sympathetic. So, but the sympathetic is related to outside your body. So anything that you can feel things on your hair, you can feel people behind you, you can feel all these things. And so that's your sympathetic nervous system sensing them. And then, but it's really part of your fight and flight system. So if somebody drops a fork, or if somebody breaks a glass, like a woman, she will almost, you see a big visceral jump and so on. Where a man will say, oh, somebody broke a glass, So their nervous systems are much different, but women's are very sensitive. And the reason is because women are more in a fight or flight response, or let's say a chronically elevated sympathetic state, meaning their bodies are, every time there's something in the environment that triggers the parasympathetic, then there's a cortisol, there's a bump in cortisol. And then, so the more stress you have in your life, in your daily life, then your body becomes hyper full of cortisol. But the parasympathetic, when it's working, like it does in most all people couldn't recognize dirty electricity or anything. That's because the parasympathetic, whenever the sympathetic responds, the parasympathetic responds to that and tries to modulate that response and calm it down, stop the cortisol, stop everything, until the person has a chance to determine should I run or should I fight? That's what the parasympathetic does. So in nature, it's not a big deal because you don't have your life threatened every 30 seconds. But for people, they get up in the morning, they're sleeping on a foam bed, they got static electricity all themselves, they're walking across the floor, you got to get the kids off to school, they got to take care of the husband, you got to take care of all of this stuff. A lot of them have to go to work and so on. So it's just rush, rush, rush. So you're in a chronically elevated sympathetic state because you're just totally responding to everything and so on. I hope I don't get too far off track on this one. But anyhow, so dirty electricity to me, is not a problem. Now, a lot of people will get upset and argue about that because that's the most important thing in their life, because they spent $25,000 having somebody come over and move their telephone poles and all this crazy stuff that everybody does. Pay $2,000 to come and measure their electric fields and so on. I don't care what anybody does. If they want to make a living doing that, they should. But I sounds a little absurd or abrupt, but there's no dead bodies or in the morgue from exposure to dirty electricity. But I can show you a line of them that died from an inflammation-related health disorder. So the issue here is inflammation. That's what grounding is about. Grounding will protect you from these low frequency transient spikes, it will reduce your exposure or eliminate your exposure to the 60 hertz, which, if anything's a problem, that would be the problem. The wiring at the head of your bed, hidden in the paneling behind the wall, that's waist high to an electrician, that would be the problem. But anyhow, if you have a good working adrenals, you don't have a problem. That's why 99% or 90, at least 90, well over 90% of the people are not sensitive to EMFs or electric fields or any of these things. But 100% of them that I've ever run across in 23 years, they all have exhausted adrenals. Their adrenals are non-functioning, and the sympathetic is overdriving, the cortisol is building, and now they're sensitive, super sensitive to everything: sound, heat, just touch, and certain animals, certain people, voice, everything. So it's really, the emphasis should be put on restoring the adrenals, not on trying to remanage your house and all the crazy stuff that goes with buying boxes, and they do not work. They do not produce the results that they claim, based on the information from Health Canada and a few others. Plus, we have our own research that we've done. But again, I'm not, if people have them, whatever, this is a free world. Everybody gets to do what they want. And I support it. Sorry.
Diana is asking about using our products with an electric heating pad or an electric blanket.
Okay, the older ones, the older heating pads and the older electric blankets, I don't know what the year cutoff was, but this is about 20 years ago, maybe 15, maybe, yeah. They created high electric fields, and a lot of people were being affected by them because they were laying directly on it. And the reason they're laying on it is because the heating pad is because they have pain. And I suggest that try sleeping on or laying on a universal mat. Just plug it into the ground. I believe that you'll have the same, if not more, improved results in just minutes. Because again, you have pain, that's inflammation. If it's hot burning pain, if it's muscles that are frozen in place from tension or hypertension, that's another issue that needs a little bit of work. But heat in and of itself, a lot of us believe that it helps, and it does improve circulation in the area. But but anyhow, you can sleep with a heating pad on top of your grounding mat. You can put it underneath of the ground mat. That way you get the grounding and the heat both. I would highly recommend that if you are going to continue to use them. And again, don't use them for long periods because they can create problems. The electric blankets, I think the National Institute of Health Sciences came out with a paper one time. They said use electric blankets to warm your bed, and then unplug them from the wall when you get into bed. Now, GE and others may have changed their configurations to make them better now. I don't know. I'm not really up onto it, but you can just go to the National Institute of Health Sciences and look up heating pads, heating blankets, and maybe get some information from that point of view. But grounding, one thing I can say about most ladies have cold fingers and cold toes when they get in bed. That's why they wear socks and have all the extra blankets. And I have a trick that I do all the time, especially at shows or with groups. All the women, raise your hand that have cold fingers, cold toes, and you put a patch right here, just one of our electrode patches, right in the middle of the palm of the hand, connected to a wire. And I said, tell me when your toes warm up. It usually takes 5 to 10 minutes. So what happens when you get grounded, it normalizes your blood viscosity because you have a negative surface charge on your blood. Blood cells repel each other, then they can get in and out of the capillaries and get into the fingers and the toes, and the body can better regulate its own temperature. But again, I don't know, I'm not telling you not to use your electric blanket, but it's safe to use with grounding. but I'm hoping that grounding is a better way to resolve the issues that you might be addressing.
Very good. Has anybody experienced healing of their eyesight with earthing?
Well, we know that when we did the truck drivers with the auto seat pads, the number one thing that came back from that group of people was they had better night vision. Now, and that wasn't even one of the questions. That was one of the written reports. Several came back with improved night vision. So what that would mean, probably more than anything, is lower blood pressure. But yeah, we have a lot of reports on. See, if there's an issue with the eyes, it's inflammation related. I mean, it's usually happening at an age or a stage, or unless you had an injury, or if other than that, it's an inflammation related health disorder. So by grounding the body, reducing the inflammation in your body, then the immune system can go back and do its best to restore. But we do have improved vision from grounding, yes.
Are there any studies that support that earthing can help diminish cancer cells?
We haven't any studies that address that directly. And again, this is something you need to make very clear, that what earthing is about, it's about reducing inflammation in your body and restoring the immune system so it can maintain health, maintain and restore health, because that's its job. That's the only thing it knows to do, is to restore health and keep maintain health. And again, health is your most natural state in nature. So if you have cancer, then at some point in time there had to be a pocket of inflammation. There are some cells within the pocket of inflammation that de-differentiated from the adjacent cells. And it could have been from an injury, it could have been from heaven only knows what, too much stress for too long, or other issues. But anyhow, this inflammation walls off this little pocket of inflammation area, and then those cells in there become a parasite. I mean, they're not functioning with the rest of the body or the rest of the system. And so they're there, they bring in their own blood supply, and then they stay there, and then all of a sudden, one day they start growing. Oftentimes they will let off stem cells that set up the process for metastatic. But anyhow, so the answer to that question is this. We know that the immune system reduces inflammation. I mean, we know that grounding reduces inflammation, and we know that the immune system improves, and it can go back and do what its normal function is. And I dare say that, I've heard this from many physicians, that everybody gets cancer every day. Depends on your immune system, whether it becomes set in or explodes or whatever. Anyhow, I hope I answered that question so that it's beneficial. But it's really, I have to say that, and we ground people, after events, like chemo and various things like that. And yeah, we have lots of stories, but we don't want to go out and mislead anybody. If you have cancer, or you have any stage of that could lead to cancer, then you need all the attention you can get. I believe grounding is part of it. The number one thing they say, if you have cancer today, the number one protocol is reduce inflammation. Mm-hmm. That's in the literature. So the number one thing you want to do is reduce inflammation and reduce stress. Eat right, get rid of the sugars, all that kind of stuff. And so your immune system can go back to work and take care of it, because that's what spontaneous remission is. You reduced all the stress on the body, and then it could automatically go to work and clean it up.
Very good. Okay. This customer purchased an earthing pad for underneath their sheets, but they can't seem to get a positive reading on the tester. So the indicator light for the tester does not go green, but there's only one sheet between the grounding pad and the tester. Why would it not turn green?
Okay, I'm assuming that the tester is on top of the sheet.
That's what it looks like, yes.
Yes. So again, rather than putting it on the cotton is not conductive. So if you will lay on the sheet for a few minutes with your body and hydrate the sheet, it might do that. But it's, you know, these testers are really designed for put it on your, connect everything up, put it on your black mat, your sleep mat, or your other mats, and that will show that it's working. That'll turn green. That means everything's in place and you're conducting ground to your mat, and the bed is, and so you have a ground plane in your bed. Putting the sheet over the top of it, this isn't designed to measure that, but if you have a certain amount of hydration, occasionally you can. If you're naked, lay on your sheet, but then turn the light on after a few minutes. I think you'll find it comes on. Or use a patch. You know, you can do things, but basically, it's not designed. It won't register through cotton alone. There has to be a little bit of humidity or a little bit of moisture in the cotton. Then it'll work. Preferably your own body perspiration.
Okay, a question about grounding with the sleep mat. Both my daughters have sleep mats and they benefited from this through better sleep. However, both of them started using extension cords and then noticed a decline in sleep. I suggested they plug directly into a grounded wall socket, and presto, their amazing sleep results returned. I'm assuming extension cords are not grounded. Is this true?
I would stay away from extension cords. If anything, use a the one that has the 6 outlets, the buses, the
Like
power
a surge
strip,
protector?
the surge protector power strips,
Yeah.
because they have a good, solid, clean ground. And then beyond that, around kids' beds, you kind of want to keep all electrical cords as much as possible away from, at least 3 feet away from their bodies during sleep, if possible. No computer, no cell phone chargers, no computers being charged in bed, those kind of things. Those are probably not a good idea. A lot of people do it, and it's not a good idea.
Okay, here's a question about shoes. Are there any shoes or flip-flops out there that you can benefit earthing while protecting your feet? And I know that you spoke a couple of weeks ago about a specific style of shoe that you use.
Yeah, my shoe is, I have some conductive that I cut and I glue it onto the bottom and I glue some onto the top and I put something in between that makes them grounded. But that's very prototypey and it's not practical for most people. We are working around the clock trying to get a full line of grounded flip-flops, and they won't just have a button in the middle, like we used to have in some of the older ones or some of the first ones. But it'll have a conductive pretty much the length of the bottom of the shoe and the top where the main foot is, so that no matter where you step, you are grounded one way or another at all times. That product, I don't have any idea for sure. We thought it was going to be here before April, but then because of COVID and because of all of the suppliers, raw materials, everything is upside down out there. So we're running way behind, but we are still working around the clock trying to get that product to market. We're trying to come up with something that's going to be in the $20 range or $30 range. That would be the high end. And but the idea behind it is that we want everybody to experience grounding, and by putting shoes on and walking, because everybody's got fatigue issues and chronic pain in knees and ankles and feet and all these things. Well, when you walk grounded for every day, and even keeping the static electricity off your body when you're in an office, and with shoes on, you're going to create lots of static. But when you have a grounded shoe on, the static, you don't create the static on the body. So you don't have that problem also indoors. But anyhow, so there's lots of benefit. We really want to get this out as fast as we can, because we know it's the easiest and most important way to educate the most people in the shortest period of time. And we want to make it as inexpensive as possible. And we want to have promotions where, I don't know what they were going to be, but we really want to get that out, because it's really as much for the kids, because of all the issues that our children are having. These kids need to be grounded at least part of the time. So the answer, I didn't get to an answer, did I? Jennifer, I'm losing you.
Sorry, I had muted myself. What shoes, are there any shoes right now that you can recommend? I know you mentioned some on a previous webinar.
Well, a lot of people ask me about hiking shoes, and there's Reebok has a line of what they call soft toe athletic shoes, but they're primarily for work and people who are on their feet a lot, and they're grounded. Grounded shoes is a big industry. Anybody who works in plants where you have dynamite, gasoline, any kind of electrically sensitive components, chips, software, or any kind of volatile chemicals, they all have to be grounded. The floors have to be grounded. So grounded shoes they're a commodity. They're out there everywhere. Reebok is one of the best for supplying that industry. There are others. But the steel toe for the work shoes are a little too heavy for walking. So if you get one, you need to do the soft toe. I think it's a 435, Reebok 435. I don't know what it is for sure. I think I put it up on a website somewhere one day. But anyway, just a soft toe athletic shoe. They sell for around $100. There are earth runners. There are all of those kind of things. They only have the little ground center in them. They need to have a little more grounding than that in them. You have the old plugs that have the hard rubber centerpiece in them. A lot of people don't like that, because after you wear them just a little bit, the plug gets very hard. It doesn't soften like the sole does, and they're uncomfortable. But I'm not knocking any of them. They all do the job. I don't really know anybody else off the top of my head. You can Google grounded shoes. If you're or ESD or anti-static shoes, so there's a plethora of this stuff out there.
All right.
But we're trying to make something that really truly works and is so inexpensive that everybody has to try it.
Okay, this is a comment from Robert. He said, this isn't a question, but it might be helpful. I sleep directly on the earthing bed cover, and I use bamboo sheets, and it works very well. I ground during sleep and any other time that it's available, approximately 10 hours a day, and it's playing out very well.
Yes.
So thank you, Robert, for that. Maya says, this is a good one. I have the product checker. And I think she means the product tester, used to be called the continuity tester. Yep. And I noticed that when I stand on my wood floorboards, the light comes on to say that I'm grounded. It's an older house. I thought floorboards weren't conductive. The boards are old now, so there's no longer any polish.
Okay, so there's probably some electrical wires or something under the floorboards, or there's probably some, Wi-Fi and various. Sometimes those will go off, because what they're doing is they're measuring, the charge that's on the floor versus the charge that's on your body. And when you're standing on the floor, it's kind of, the only thing I can do is move away from all of the electronic devices, and it should work fine. if you have a Wi-Fi next to your bed, maybe turn it off when you're doing your test and put it back on if you want. But yeah, that is an issue that is related to excess electrical noise in the environment. But it should still work well on your product.
Diana says that she's recommended to many friends that they try our earthing products, people who are anxious or easily distracted or not getting good sleep. Most notice that they are more relaxed, but they don't sleep any better. She thinks that maybe they just don't notice the subtle changes. Should they notice a huge difference in their sleep?
Some people, first night, they sleep like a rock. And then the next few nights, they sleep, really deep. And then all of a sudden, they're not sleeping as well. And again, all of those people, by and large, they have exhausted adrenals. I mean, they're burned out the adrenals function with hormones. I mean, and every time you have a sympathetic response, there's some of your hormones are released, and the body, the adrenals have a limited supply. And so when you exhaust that, then the sympathetic goes crazy. But anyhow, so at night, when people start getting rest, then they go to bed, and a lot of it's their own doing with thinking, just stress, life stress. Some of it is related to this adrenal fatigue, but most of that should settle down after a few days or a few weeks. But the body is recalibrating, and the body is, once you put the inflammation out, then the immune system goes crazy trying to restore health. And now it's got an unlimited supply of free electrons because it's connected to the earth. So there's a lot of healing and a lot of repair. There's a lot of issues, and they're different for everybody. But the more exhausted the adrenals are, the more, even though they went to sleep the first night, that was from exhaustion. And then once the adrenals start to repair, then they start coming up. But again, you have to restore the adrenals fully in order to solve that problem. But again, I'm not sure how to answer this specifically. If I were dealing with one person in their home, I'd get to the bottom of it. But everybody's a little different.
How do you know when you've gotten rid of inflammation in your body?
You have no pain in your body.
Is grounding helpful for healing gallbladder issues?
Again, that's, I'm sure that it would depend on what the issue is, and that's not something I can really address. But I can only always go back to is if you get grounded, then it will help restore, eliminate the inflammation and help restore the immune system. What I would do with people who mention things like that is I would say get a patch, put it right over your gallbladder and go to sleep. We do that with kidneys. We do that with all kinds of other issues, and they get great benefit in a short period of time. Doesn't mean that's a cure. It's not a cure. All you're doing is reducing stress on the body so that the body can heal itself.
When you start grounding, do you go through any side effects?
Oh, yes. Not everybody. I would say 80% of the people, what they feel is a little bit of tingling in their legs or they lay down on the mat, and they'll feel a little bit of what feels like a tingle. And what that is you think of your body as a capacitor or as a battery. The earth is a big battery and you're a little battery. So when you connect the two of them, then your little body equalizes with the earth. So it's drawing electrons into your body, reducing the charge, but also maintaining the body at 20 millivolts negative. So that's what most people feel. And a lot of people are sometimes it's a little more noticeable than others, but it usually goes away in 15 minutes. That means you've charged up. That means the electrons have come into your body and you're equal with the earth. And so all of that settles. And then if you go for a few days sometime, on a trip or whatever, and you come back and you might feel it again. But the better you get rid of the inflammation, then the less you feel it, that kind of thing. Now, other people, especially trying to think, people who are very sensitive people. They're sensitive to touch, they're sensitive to noise, cold, whatever. A lot of them, when they get grounded the first time, sometimes they can only be grounded for maybe a half hour or so. Some people, and so they have to work into it slowly. And it's because they have to restore their adrenals. And by grounding the body, reducing the inflammation, that's going to help support, the adrenals. So it takes time for those to come up. But we have some people that actually feel like they have a flu. And a lot of people say, oh, it's the dirty electrodes, or is this, or it's not. What it is if you have a lot of inflammation in your body and your health is compromised or been compromised, then what happens, the first thing that happens is the blood viscosity changes. There's a study on the Earthing Institute that shows how the blood changes, and your blood becomes more negative, and that means around the surface of the little red blood cells, you increase the amount of free electrons equal to the Earth. So now they're grounded. So now because they're more negative, they repel each other, and now they can get into the capillaries, oxygenate the tissue, and start carrying out the debris, and just all the stuff that goes on there, the cellular debris. So what happens is when you improve circulation, lots of times there'll be a flood of debris coming from cellular debris or like spirochete, whatever, in the end of the capillaries and so on. So it's identical to getting, going to the store, coming home, and you have the flu. So your body, you have an explosion of virus in the body. The white blood cells proliferate, and they create an army that invade, and over a period of weeks or days or whatever, knock out all of the viruses, and then you have this horrible feeling. It's a flu, and the body's cleaning all of that up. So what happens when you get grounded sometimes is you actually feel like you're getting the flu, but you are, a lot of people call it detox. I don't necessarily understand that word sometimes, the way people use it, but basically, anyhow, you're reducing the inflammation, and as soon as that happens, the immune system can go to work, start repairing, doing cellular repair, cleaning up tissue, all that kind of stuff. And so the debris from all of that, your lymphs have to, filter out a bunch of it. It just goes on and on. I mean, everything in the body that goes on when you have a viral attack or a debris, a die-off. It's a die-off is what it is. So you'll have a die-off oftentimes with grounding, like you do the flu, and you will experience similar symptoms. But you get over it. Some people can only do it a little bit at a time and get through it. Other people just go for a crash course and go through it.
Okay, we have a couple of questions here. I'm going to kind of lump them into one because they're sort of asking the same thing. What about copper infused sheets and pillowcases? And what about copper socks to wear outside instead of being totally barefoot?
Well, first of all, the copper sheets, when they're infused with copper. So you take graphite, or I mean, not graphite, but powdered copper, and they spray it on the sheet when they're manufacturing, and then they press it, and that's infusing it into the cotton fibers. But these are just little micro pieces of copper. They're not connected to each other, so they do not have conductivity. There is no conductivity in a silver infused or a cotton infused sheet. Now the socks, if you're going to be standing directly on the earth and there's little copper particles in the socks, and the particle, there's enough moisture in the sock and from the earth and so on, or from perspiration from the foot, you're going to be well grounded. Yeah.
Does the pillow cover feel the same as the Elite bed mat? Is it the same fabric?
Yes, it is.
This woman, Michelle, she has a therapy pool. Does the grounded pool water help heal the body like earthing?
Should throw a little salt in it and help even more. Epsom salt. So
Lee is asking, am I still getting grounding and earthing benefits with all my leather moccasins while walking outside?
I wore leather moccasins half my life when I was young. Basically, the ones we had were generally doeskin. But what happens is the more you wear them, your feet are constantly perspiring. When you put a shoe on of any kind, the bottom of your foot is going to start sweating. And that the salt, the body salts, and the perspiration hydrate the leather underneath. I mean, saturate the leather with body salts and perspiration. And then as long as you wear them every day, they're going to hold that and they're going to be very conductive. But if you have a pair that you wear just on weekends, they may dry out and they won't be as conductive or conductive at all. So, um, not probably a good idea, but go stand in a puddle of water and hydrate them. Spray some water in the inside, rehydrate them. That will help. But leather is conductive if you wear it all the time. It's not conductive if you let it dry out. It's like in Palm Springs here. I don't think leather would ever work very well. But over in Carlsbad, no problem. There's plenty of humidity and plenty of soil, moisture in the soil.
This is a personal question for you. How many hours do you ground a day, and how do you stay connected throughout the day?
Okay. I get up in the morning and I generally go down and sit for an hour and go through emails and all that kind of stuff. While I'm doing that, my feet are on a grounded floor mat. I also have a mat underneath my computer for my mouse pad. I use it for a mouse pad rather than the old one. So I don't probably get as much benefit off the one on my desk. But anyhow, so I'm grounded whenever I'm at my computer. I usually take the dog for a walk, 1,500 steps, three times a day. I'm in a grounded flip-flop. So then I have stone floor in part of the house. So that area I'm naturally grounded. When I go to bed, I have a mattress cover that covers my whole mattress. It's a queen size. Then I have 2 grounded pillowcases, and I don't have my grounded pillowcases plugged in because I don't sleep with the sheet. I just sleep with the black. So the pillowcases are automatically grounded when they're on, just laying on the sleep mat. But when I travel, I take a cord and I sometimes take just the pillowcase and I'll plug it in and so on. But anyhow, if I go out and exercise or do something weird or get myself a little delayed onset muscle soreness going, I'll use the electrode patches. So I'm pretty much, I would say I'm grounded probably 20 hours a day, if not more, on the average. And I'm 77 years old. I got no pain. I got lots of energy. I can go walk 5,000 steps a day without any real problem, as long as I'm barefoot or grounded. If I put shoes on, I can't do that. If I put shoes on, I'd be lucky to walk a mile. But as long as I'm barefoot, my body's kind of like a fuel cell, especially with sunshine, and I can just go. Kind of like the prairie animals. So yeah, I'm grounded about 24 hours a day, or about 20 hours a day, and I pay attention to it.
Very
Because
good.
at the age of 50, I felt like I'd been run over by a truck. Because I grew up on a ranch, I grew up wrestling steers, just normal things you would do with calving season or everything goes with that. I skied for over 30 years. And all kinds of injuries, knee injuries, every kind of injury you could think of. I played tennis, I've blown out ankles. When I was 50, I could barely walk down the aisle in a grocery store. I had to lash myself onto a cart and kind of push myself and hobble around the store and gather groceries. But anyhow, today I have none of those issues. And no knee replacements, no hip replacements, no ankle replacements. But they could have been, should have been a couple of times, but the body is a self-healing mechanism. I can attest your cartilage grows back, everything returns to normal. If you just get grounded, stay grounded, take the stress off the immune system so it can go do its job.
I have a question here that's actually for me. Someone is asking where they can rewatch this webinar, and you can do that on our YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is called Earthing, and all of our webinars are posted there. It usually takes about a little less than an hour for it to post, and you can access it. But that's where you can rewatch our webinars here. Okay. Lisa has a question about our products. Do we have any products that allow you to connect to a solar panel instead of a ground?
What benefit would a solar panel have? I'm not following this.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe Lisa, you can comment a little further on your question here.
If you're talking about the ground that's connected to the solar system, it's probably fine versus the electrical ground to the other. And you know, you were talking safety there. I think she said safe.
She just asked if there are any products that allow you to connect to a solar panel instead of the ground.
Yeah, because they're all safe. I mean, but go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. Dave has only grounded outside in the grass and the dirt. How long should he ground for, and how long does the benefit of grounding last?
You should ground until the pain goes away. And as soon as the pain comes back, you need to get grounded again. And if you do that, there's a cumulative effect. So may have to ground more in the beginning, less down the road. But it's about pain. Pain is the signal. Pain is the indicator. You cannot have pain unless you have inflammation.
Here is another comment. I'm so happy and so grateful that I found Clint Ober. I started grounding in the park for 30 minutes on June 1st, and this is the first time since pre-COVID that I'm falling asleep before the sun rises. So it looks like even just grounding during the day has helped this person to sleep. They don't even have to sleep on the product.
The reason is because you have all this anxiety, irritability, this inflammation going on in your body. When you go stand barefoot on the earth, go to the park, put your hands on the grass, put your feet on the grass, sit there for 30 minutes, and it drains, it puts out all the fire of inflammation. Your blood circulates once a minute. And so it's picking up electrons every time it goes by your hand and your feet and giving those electrons where it needs to put out the inflammation and so on. So what it's going to do is you put the fire out for at least a half hour, and it doesn't immediately come back. It comes back slowly, but you do have to ground out at least a couple of times a day, for sure, at least a half hour, a couple of times a day to get the benefit that she's talking about.
Do you get more electron benefit with both bare feet on the mat than you do with just a patch on your palm or the bottom of your foot? I think this person also mentions, I think they're a little confused how just a button-sized patch could be as beneficial as having, more of your body on there.
What the patch does, it's like when they do an EKG on you, they have to use these electrode patches to break through the skin because the skin has a lot of resistance. It's like you're the signals don't just come through your skin because your body's kind of like a Faraday cage. And but anyhow, so when you put the electrode patch on the palm of the hand, then it makes that area very conductive. Where if you just take and put your hand on a mat or whatever, there can be, maybe a couple hundred K of resistance, maybe 250 K of resistance on the palms of your hands, and maybe 100 K in the feet, and maybe 5 megs of resistance on normal dry skin. Skin is dry, it's not conductive. So when it's just like an EKG. They can't do a reading unless they break through the skin. So what we're doing here is we're creating a path through the skin so that you have an abundance of electrons in a very short period of time. And that's more for localized grounding. You're not going to necessarily ground out the whole body. You will, you'll ground out the whole body. But the patches are primarily used for inflammation or MS or acute situations where there's chronic inflammation, to put the fire out in minutes and keep it out, and so the body can heal and recover.
Okay, Diana has a question. Her daughter wants to use the grounding mats and sheets in her office and in her bedroom. We checked to see if the outlets in those rooms are grounded, and the lights did not indicate that they were, but every other room in the home indicates grounding. What could be going on here?
That means that the outlet is not wired properly. They may have reversed the polarity or something. Mm-hmm. The easiest thing to do is call an electrician and have them come and verify it, rectify it, fix it.
Yeah, especially if it's working in other outlets of the house and then you have a few that aren't. Does grounding have any improvement in bone density?
Yeah, we've talked about that a few times, and people have talked about it. We have a handful of people that, they go and have their bone density test done every 6 months, and they're on Fosamax or those type of drugs. And anyhow, so what happens is once they start grounding, then the body starts laying bone back on. And the reason for that is your bones are the reservoir. They're the largest reservoir for free electrons in your body. So it's like if you're not grounded and you're short of electrons, then the body has to dissolve the calcium out of the bones in order to free up electrons in order to maintain your blood pH normal. And that has to stay normal at all times. So there's a system that does that. So if you're never ever grounded, then your bones are going to get thin and brittle. But if you stay grounded, then you're going to have, or if you get grounded, then the bones, like I said, the body's a self-healing mechanism. Give it the resources, remove the stress that's causing the problem, or give it the resources that it needs to restore health. But the body will lay bone back on. In fact, were you on that call where we had this one gentleman talking to us about in Afghanistan and Yemen and places like that where there's a lot of barefoot? But anyhow, the Yemens are the ones who don't wear shoes are 2 or 3 inches taller. I mean, the ones who go barefoot, throughout their life. And so again, it's free electrons. You got to have them.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question here. This person is using the patches on a painful ankle and has been doing that for the past couple of months, but there's been no effect on the pain. What could be going on?
Well, first of all, we need to make sure that the patches that the cord is working, that the outlet is good, because we always have reduction of pain. Other than that, if it's a bone spur, or if it's certain type things, I would need more information. If she wants to send it in, we can address it next week. But we just need to know more. But I would put the patch on it for sure, and sleep with it. Not do it for a half hour, but sleep with it. Put a sock over it if you have to keep it on, and start reducing that inflammation so that the body can restore itself.
Okay, just a quick comment here. Doug has said, I am grounded at my computer and have no more headaches for about 2 years now, thanks to grounding.
Yep.
Patches at night while I sleep. And at 54, I sleep the best I've ever slept in my life.
Yes.
Thank you for that, Doug.
Yeah, sleeping with patches on is a big deal for a lot of people.
Yeah. It can be life-changing.
Yep.
Sonia, another quick comment here. Sonia says that grounding does help. My white and red blood cell count has increased over 3 weeks of grounding. They were very low for 7 months, and I give the credit to grounding.
Yep.
So that's great to hear.
Yep. It's nature.
Yeah.
Reconnect with nature.
I think that's the one thing that's a little bit, you know, a lot of the questions we ask are actually kind of the same question, just reworded. All you're doing is just putting your body back in its natural state. And then it can do what it was made to do, which is heal and be healthy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much, Clint. To all of you out there, yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for submitting your questions. I do see some questions here that came in about the last 15 minutes that we weren't able to get to. I do try to go through the questions as they come in. And we just encourage you to log in early. We start every Monday at 3:30 Pacific time. So if you can log in a little earlier, get your question in, it will get answered. If you haven't done so already, please follow us on social media and subscribe to our newsletter. That way you can stay in the loop regarding all of our webinars, our sales, product announcements. So when those flip-flops that everybody's so excited for come in, we will be announcing them. The first place we will announce them is the newsletter. So you can go to earthing.com and sign up for that. You can also rewatch this webinar and all of our other webinars on our Earthing YouTube channel. You can also watch the Earthing movie at that Earthing YouTube channel. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Clint. Thank you to my customer service team. And I hope you all have a great evening.